A very warm welcome to RPTV. I'm delighted to say the Dream Team are once again reunited for an early anti-post look at the Ladbrokes St Ledger on September the 10th. It's of course, gentlemen, the final classic of the year, and we have Nick Watts and Graham Rodway to sort the wheat from the chaff. Nick, we'll begin with you. Sea Moon, understandably, around the 6-4 mark on the back of a very impressive display in the Great Voltigeur. There's been mixed opinions, as daft as it sounds, regarding perhaps he was flattered by the ground and other horses underperforming. A, how do you respond to that performance? And B, do you think 6-4 is a valid price for this contest?
Yeah, I mean, responding to the performance, I don't see how you could fault it, really. Seville was a short price favourite going into the race and brought solid form into the book, albeit I didn't like Seville last week, and he disappointed again. But no, I don't think you can fault Sea Moon. I mean, I think it was only his fourth start, only second start of the season. Missed out early doors because he didn't seem to be ready. Took him a long time to get going, but Michael Stout's been ever so patient with him. And he did need to improve from his York return because that was only a handicap. But given his breeding, it's related to Brian Boru and workforce as well. You always thought he could make that jump. And he travelled ever so well. He's the winner a long way out. Put a lot of distance between himself and his rivals. If you're going to crab that performance, I don't know what people are looking for in a race, really. I mean, what more can you do than that? He's a justifiable favourite, I think. If he had come to hand early, I'm sure he would have been one of Sir Michael Stout's Derby horses, or certainly in the frame for the Derby. Just wasn't at the races the first half of the season. But he's had a very light campaign, 2 starts, 6-4. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be in a rush to take it now, but the only reason for that is because we're still not sure at the moment that he's definitely going to go for the Ledger. We think he will. But the way that he won last week, it wouldn't totally surprise you if they decided to take in an Arc trial instead and maybe look at France. And for that reason, I'd like to definitely know at this stage that he's definitely, absolutely 100% going to Doncaster. Otherwise, I'll leave it because, you know, it might be similar price at the day. But I do think he's the one they've all got to beat, without a doubt. OK, and Graham, visually the most impressive winner of a middle distance 3-year-old this season. And are you sharing Nick's view?
Yeah, I agree with Nick. Won easily. Actually, Couch told me that this would win the Derby last season after it won its maiden. Said that it was absolutely working the house down at Stouts. As I must admit, Couch has told me a few things like that in the past and haven't always come good. But this one he was obviously bang on with.
Apart from it didn't run in the Derby.
Apart from the fact that obviously, yeah, it didn't run in the Derby. But he was obviously bang on about his ability. Yeah. And he showed it at York. Few things just worried me about the York run. Number one, he was really easy to back on the day, so he wasn't backed as if defeat was out of the question. Like, considering for an horse that won by 6-7 lengths, you would have thought that he might have been quite strong, but you could have backed him at big prices before the off on the exchanges. So it just makes me think that maybe that performance wasn't expected. Although obviously he did produce it, and also I'm not a massive fan of this York racetrack. I think that it does tend to exaggerate distances for some reason, a bit like Ascot can do, and they do tend to finish really strong out. But having said that, Sea Moon can only turn up and win by 6 lengths like he did. Deserves to be hot favourite, but do you want to be back in that anti-post? 5-4, even if it turns up on the day, probably only be 4-5. In percentage terms, you're talking about a really small amount that you're going to be back in, risking whether he turns up. Could go to France, could go for the Niel, and then the Arc. Probably won't, probably will go for the Ledger. But for me, there's more risk involved.
There's not much scope in his price.
5-4 is too short.
OK, gentlemen, well, if we're going to sit out Sea Moon from a betting perspective, then Nick, second in the market is the Wonder Filly of this year, Blue Bunting. Irish Oaks, Yorkshire Oaks, 1,000 guineas, you name it. Really tough as old boots, this filly. And Nick, I know you're quite keen on her.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're looking through the market, best price 6-1 at the moment. I think that's a great price for a classic winner. She's one of, I think she's the only horse in this field that brings classic form to the table. And she's had a fantastic season. Like you said, I think we're all wondering when she won the 1,000 guineas whether she might have been flattered by that because she'd come up a solo run up the rail. And the others raced in the middle, but she's proved that to be completely wrong. Probably wasn't ridden quite right at Epsom. I don't know what happened to Frankie that day, but probably not as his best. But certainly was in Ireland the next time. Got her up on the line, and then obviously last week at York, put in a very game performance. She's really tough, she's really genuine, she's game, she's going to stay this trip, I think. All she appears to do is stay, and she brings a very, very high level of form to the table in what and strength in depth-wise, I don't think it's a great contest. So I think 6 to 1, I couldn't have her out the frame, and you can back her at 6 to 1 and still make a small profit if you wanted to back her each way. Yeah, can't have her out the 3, and I think she'll win. I think she's a value at 6 to 1.
There's a possible concern against her. Could you argue a running style? She throws the kitchen sink into every race. Do you think there'd be a point where a hard season, possibly for a filly, could catch up with her, especially taking on the colts at the back end?
Yes, I mean, that would be the unknown factor, and that would be the worry. I mean, if you get a horse ready for the Guineas comes very early in the season. I think it's the first week in May. So to do that, she would have had to be on the go from probably February, March time. So it's a long season. Like you said, we're nearing August, well, nearing September now. It'll be September by the time of the race. So can she keep her form together in the light of some hard races? I'd say that she could do. It's obviously a bit of guesswork involved in that, but
6 to 1's a fair price to.
6 to 1, yeah, for a classic winner, I think 6 to 1 is a very reasonable price. Particularly, I mean, say for example that Sea Moon did go for an arc route, then she'd be a short price favourite. So there's always that in your armoury as well. Okay,
great stuff then. So Blue Bunting there, Nick. And Graham, looking at the rest of them, likes of Census and Brown Panther obviously have key form lines from this season. Which one of those two are you more keen on?
Well, I like Brown Panther, but Census thrashed it last time out. Newbury stayed on really strongly to beat it quite easily. So difficult really to see why Brown Panther should return that form, although some people would have said that about when Brown Panther thrashed Census by 6 lengths in a handicap at Ascot. Census was given plenty to do that day, and I think that Census is actually the one who's going forward, coming into this race a bit more than Brown Panther. Brown Panther may have done his best race in this season. He's had a lot of runs, whereas Census still remains quite unexposed and open to improvement. There's no doubt that he showed that last time when stepped up in trip in the Geoffrey Freer. One thing I like about Census is his decent price. He's around about 6 to 1 mark. You know he's going to run because this is the race that suits him best, without doubt. We know he stays. And I think he's an absolute rock solid each way bet to nothing against the favourite. Blue Bunting was interesting to talk about. Has had a series of hard races, but Frankie Dettori did say after the Yorkshire Oaks that she's a filly who only just does enough. In which case she may
holding a bit back.
She may not be having a harder race as it looks. She may well just be keeping a bit back to herself. Once she gets to the front, maybe she's doing it a little bit easier than you think she is. But having said that, she has been on the go for a long time. What just worries me a little bit about Blue Bunting is whether she will run or not. They may decide to go for it. I know Godolphin have had winners of this in the past. They like the race. But for me, of the two obvious contenders against Sea Moon, Census is the more solid each way proposition, because you know he's going to run and you know that he stays the trip.
Okay, that's great stuff then. And Nick, if we're looking at anything at a mad price to turn up, I mean, I've been scratching my head. Possibly make a slight outside case for Whiplash Willie if the ground went to pieces, but it really does seem, being the long shot, I want to find a long shot, but I'm struggling to find anything out of the top 3 or 4 here to have a major say.
Yeah, we've just had a look at the entries today, the revised list, and it seems to be more about the horses that aren't running that are actually still in the race. I mean, Nathaniel probably should have been running. Treasure Beach should have been running. I don't think Ballador have got anything. Seville's a disappointing horse for me. I'll be amazed if that can win.
Wonders is the other.
I'll do a Graham Rodway and say it actually can't win. So there you go, Seville won't win. They've left Wonder of Wonders in the race. Yeah, obviously she was second in the Oaks, but she's a filly that doesn't want to go past to me. I'm not keen on her head carriage. She had all of Epsom straight to get past Dancing Rain, couldn't do it. So I'm not sure about her. Big prices, you got Mars Marvel around the 10 to 1 shot. I put him up for the Derby actually, thought he'd run much better than he did. I think he's a good horse, but not a great one. I can't get excited about anything at big prices, I really can't. And as good as Census looked last time out, and as good as Brown Panther was at Ascot, I just think they've got to step up to beat Sea Moon and Blue Bunting, and out of the two I'm going to go with the filly, but like you, Ted, I'm struggling to find a long shot, I can't do it.
Okay then, well, if you can't find one, I can't find one, there we go, we all go home happy. But so just to conclude then, gentlemen, Blue Bunting is an each-way bet to nothing, and we're going with Census as an each-way bet to nothing as well.
Census each way.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thank you for joining me, gentlemen. Thank you for watching at home, and see you all again soon.